Tito's Tuesday.
Tito's Tuesday. Tito's Tuesday.
This
Woo!
podcast is sponsored by Tito's, America's number
Tito's.
one vodka, John. Tito's handmade vodka. What a product. Mac Jones being the starting quarterback for the New England Patriots put any pressure on Trey Lance?
Well, how does it not? Like, there's just no way around it. Now, you hit on it earlier. You cannot judge anything till like 3 or 4 years out, right? Because on draft night, you would have been like, damn, the Arizona Cardinals got Josh Rosen at 10. Holy shit. Like, is Lamar Jackson, because this guy's not very accurate? What? The Bills, these crazy assholes. Josh Allen, 7. You guys crazy? And just things age. Things change. Hell, you wouldn't have said that about Josh Allen really till like last year. So they are tied at the hip. There's no way around it. Even probably, and you've convinced me this, it's more than Fields, even though like Fields will be talked about, but like that was the decision. Those two guys. So
the Niners were choosing between Mac and Trey, and ultimately, Trey was.
Now, if Fields becomes the star and those two guys are average and one of them sucks, like that's a reflection on them.
Right.
But like their circumstances were dramatically different. Like you said, would he beat out Jimmy? I don't fucking know. What would it look like with the Niners? I don't know. But like him versus Cam skipping balls. Talking to my buddies with the Eagles, it was like he's skipping balls, skipping them. And then Mac comes in and he just completes it. So if you just watch one guy throw and the other guy throw, you're like, what are we talking about here? And then he's played well in the preseason. This gets back to, though, right now, Mac Jones, and I don't know if I necessarily believed this before or even right around the draft, but after watching both of them play, Mac Jones today, better player, more equipped to win week 1. Like I would probably start Trey Lance. I've been saying that over and over, though I kind of understand what Kyle's doing. Though I will say this, in the preseason games that we saw before he chipped his fucking finger, he would be a roller coaster ride. Their team is so good, it'd be hard for them to lose to the Lions. But still, the NFL, I do think like week 2, would Trey Lance just be a lock to walk into Philadelphia on the road and win a game? It would be tough. You know, if he doesn't have the touch and he's just a little overwhelmed and maybe if they got down like 7-0 in the second quarter, I don't know. I understand where they're coming from. Where I do think Mac is just a little more equipped. I don't know. He just played 18 games in the SEC playing well, right? And clearly he just has attributes that translate immediately. Accuracy, offensive understanding, just things that I think Trey's – because they're throwing like a double playbook at him. Clearly, right? He has to learn the Niners playbook, and then he has like these specific plays that are unique to him. It's just a more complicated situation, but we're going to talk about it nonstop. But ultimately, you can't truly judge it till years out. But that's not the way it works. Like you get judged every week in the league.
And the thing that happens when you're on a big stage like Trey Lance is on, he's one of the biggest stories in the NFL, is that it gets brought up to you even if you're able to isolate yourself from it, right? So Trey Lance, let's just say, stays off Twitter, doesn't read anything anybody says, blah, 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 blah. But there's going to be questions to Kyle Shanahan if the Patriots are 4-0 with Mac Jones, right? Hey, Kyle, did you watch Mac Jones last night? Kyle, what'd you think about Mac? You know, Kyle, what was it that you loved most about Mac Jones? Right? These things are just to some degree unavoidable. Now, the reason you draft a player over another player is because one of the reasons is that you think, if I had both of these guys, I could make this guy better than this guy, right?
I also think you got to factor in truly to the amount of stuff they gave up to get a guy, the amount you invest in. I think the logic has to be we're shooting for the fences here. We're trying to hit a walk-off grand slam, not just you can't try to hit a double once you trade all that. Especially now looking back when you could have got him at 12, it would have been I know we have all the information now, but that's what I was saying, and I think a lot of people in the league are like, boy, is this guy going to go in the top 5? Like a talent like that has never gone that high. Just physical attributes. Where Trey, it's easy to stand next to him and be like, yeah, this is what a number 1 pick looks like physically. Now there's more to playing the quarterback position, which Mac is more progressed at currently than Trey. Of course he is. Older, played at Alabama. One guy played at North Dakota. One guy had a fucking season last year. The other guy didn't.
But you don't control where the other guy goes. If you draft Trey Lance, you don't control where Justin Fields goes. Justin Fields could go to the Rams, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, Justin Fields has a chance to be great. Or he goes to the Bears, and maybe it's harder for him to be great. Mac Jones goes to the Patriots. gives him a better chance to be great. Trey Lance is a Niner, gives him a better chance to be great, right? The Jets drafted Zach Wilson. Well, they know that then they're letting Kyle Shanahan have his pick then of what he wants to do next. And that you can't control that. You just got to worry about, here's the guy we got. Here's what we can worry about. We got to get Zach Wilson as good as he can possibly be. And if Kyle Shanahan makes Trey Lance a Pro Bowler, that's fine, right? That's got nothing to do with us. If our guy's a Pro Bowler, that's okay. If Mac Jones is a 10-year starter for the Patriots and wins a bunch of games, that in and of itself isn't bad for Trey Lance. If Trey Lance is a great player.
No. Well, don't you think last year...
It doesn't make Kyle look good if, like, Mac is good, but Fields is... I mean, it would be...
I guess I was going to use the Browns-Baker analogy, but, like, the GM and the head coach are gone, so it doesn't even matter. When you get new administration in there, it doesn't matter. But when it stays the same, you do get judged, right? That you just do. Like, part of the reason Ryan Pace, to this day, still takes heat. Like, bro, Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, you pass on them both from Mitch, and you're still there, and they gave you another shot to draft a quarterback? Like, it's... part of where, as long as Bill is there and Kyle's there and the administrations are there, then it's easier to kind of judge them on face value. It does get a little complicated when other people come in and better coaches. I think it's fair to say Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick and Kyle Shanahan, both guys got very lucky. Now, obviously, Trey gets more money. You drafted higher. It worked out pretty fucking well for Mac Jones.
Use the link in this video to sign up. Get in the Haberman and Middlecoff DraftKings League. Get in our game this week for the FedEx Cup Championship and get ready to play an awesome football season with us on DraftKings. When you go to butcherbox.com/ham, you get 3 pounds of chicken breast, 2 pounds of burgers, 1 pound of hot dog for free right now. New members get the special deal when you sign up at butcherbox.com/ham.
Now, it would have been great for him, too, with San Francisco. Like, if those were his two options, and the two teams that probably truly liked him the most, which might have been the case, he was going to play pretty well.
Yeah, except the difference was in San Francisco, there'd be this kind of Andy Dalton vibe on him, right? Like the Bears fans would be like, we didn't want you. Now, you can change that really fast, right?
It would. There would have been some negativity around him,
it would just be some negativity. And in New England, it's like, great, cool, come on down, right?
I think you hit on something so key right there. He got to go a place where people were excited. They would have not been excited here. And it would have been hard to convince people because I think his game's kind of like Jimmy. They're like, we just got Jimmy 2.0, maybe a little bit better. Like what? Kirk Cousins? That's like
which Jimmy 2.0 or a little bit better or Kirk Cousins? That's your quarterback.
Well, if I tell you get a better version of Kirk Cousins, like the Niners are going to be going to the playoffs a lot.
No, you said a better version of Jimmy or Kirk Cousins.
I know. I'm saying if, let's say, Mac Jones is a better version of Kirk Cousins, because Kirk Cousins is now better than Jimmy,
yep.
The Niners would be able to make the playoffs immediately.
Yes.
Where it's like,
and
if Trey Lance,
if you had a better version of Kirk Cousins, you'd be signing him to contracts that when he signs it makes him one of the top quarterbacks in the league.
Facts.
You'd be the first to admit what?
If Trey Lance started 17 games this year, while I do think he would be dramatically better, in theory, down the stretch, they could easily miss the playoffs if he's overwhelmed. Because we talked about this, I think, on the last podcast, and I've been saying this over and over. The game of football, baseball, the Giants play the Brewers again. You just show up, you take BP, you get ready to play again. Basketball, back-to-backs, you just fucking roll out the ball, you play. There's no game plan. The entire sport of football is predicated on an individual game plan, right? You spend all week mixing and matching plans, plays, schemes, things to throw, especially a young quarterback, off. And the moment, which he will naturally show something that he struggles at, they overwhelm you with that. So what we witnessed in the preseason, and this Mac too, the sport of football looks differently come September, whatever. If you're that Bucks game, September 12th is when most teams play. Like the games look differently. It's no different in college football this week. Practicing, they've been all of a sudden you're going to see things that you haven't. All these freshmen or sophomore quarterbacks all over the country. It's like you feel pretty good about it. And then they get out there like, holy shit, I don't know what this covered. What do I even do? And they freak, which is human nature. That's something like there's nothing Tom or Aaron or Mahomes at this point have not seen. That's just that you just don't know. Because I do think most people would be bullish. Let's use Mac for an example. They're like, I bet Mac, if you just said, like, how do you think he looks early on? People would be like, pretty good. I bet he looks. There is a chance he gets overwhelmed. He's like, doesn't look that good. Right? You get blitzes, he gets hit. Not played a game. Trey too. Like
Now,
I don't know how Trey's going to throw. Like when the bullets are flying.
I do think Trey Lance is in a position compared to Mac to just take bigger jumps because of how little he's played, right? The basic explanation, if you said to somebody why Trey Lance over Mac Jones, you'd say because we think Mac Jones is closer to a ceiling than Trey Lance, and Trey Lance's ceiling is much higher than Mac Jones's, right? And part of being closer to the ceiling for Mac Jones is that he's played a ton of high level football. Which on one hand, it's funny we use it both ways. It like we give you credit for it, but we also use it to discredit you depending on how good we think you are. But for Trey Lance, and I think we saw it in the preseason where even that third preseason game, as we talked about on the last podcast, there were a lot of things you could go at. Didn't look good. He didn't look as good. He hasn't looked as good as the first camps that we saw, or OTAs. But I thought he's looked more comfortable. And I just think he's going to need more and more of that, whereas Mac Jones looks comfortable right away. The question is going to be, does Mac Jones look significantly better week 5 than he did week 1? Does he look better week 10 than he did week 5? On and on and on and on and on. Are they winning the whole way and he doesn't have to do that much? Like, how are they winning? It does set up for it to be really successful for him, and he looks differently than he did at Alabama when he's just zoop, throwing it all over the place. But, I mean, you know, the other thing, their roster offensively this year versus what their roster was offensively last year, just like Trey is really, if Trey plays and he's got Kittle and Ayuk and Debo and Juszczyk and Juice and all these guys around him, and Jalen Hurts-John, who made the roster apparently, as I'm reading Twitter,
made the roster.
Mac Jones got a couple of tight ends, like they got something there for him, right? Nikhil, but.
He made the team, didn't he? He would have had. He's saying, injured. Like, he hurt his shoulder.
Trade request.
Yeah,
like
he doesn't even play.
Just for ketchup, and then he never brings it. And nothing you can do about it. Did you get the ketchup? No.
But
I'll keep.
I had a buddy that watched Trey Lance pretty closely this preseason, and I said, "What do you think?" He said he's really talented, big time athlete, perfect for the RPO and boots that are in vogue now. His rare ability to throw on the run with that power. If he can figure it out, they're really going to be stressing defenses out. This is an unbiased guy who just evaluates, you know, he's a scout, right? Just evaluates guys. And I think the scouting community, again, like I look at it, I see the traits. Coaches do look differently. Like if we had John DeFilippo and Matt Nagy sitting with us right now, they could verbalize and explain things about Andy Dalton that you and I could not, right? Why they're excited, why they valued things different than like, I bet if you just grab some random scout with the Bears, be like, holy shit, why don't we just play the kid, you know? But that's not how coaches in all sports, they don't think, they have to think differently. And this is where I do give ultimately the Niners credit, is they thought big picture. Because if you were obsessed with 2021, and it's not crazy to be, because you go, God, we could win the Super Bowl, they could have taken Mac Jones and at least justified it to themselves. Definitely Kyle.
They could have even said, we think he's better than Jimmy Peters. They could have said, we think he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo right now. And you go, okay. I could have bought that. That it's a mild upgrade. But you don't trade all of that for a mild upgrade.
No, you can't. It would have been, you do not risk your life savings to hit a double.